Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about stuff. For those of you looking for great books on finance and making money and how the world turns because of money, there are links in the description below. Okay, so I know the title was a bit dramaticals, but completely hear me out here. We might be witnessing the end of an era. The way that things normally work, and there's so many layers to this, it's gonna be a lot. The way that things normally work within the cryptocurrency space, someone buy, price go up. I think we can all kind of agree with that. It goes a little bit deeper as well within the cryptocurrency market when it comes to Bitcoin. Historically, now I need to, asterisk on there. Historically, we've seen a number of things constantly play out over and over and over again. This time is, however, completely different. Whenever we've had a Bitcoin halving before, as there have been many, one thing typically happens. There tends to be a sell the news kind of moment. The people get ready for the halving, the price goes up, the halving happens, and prices tend to dip a bit. Normally, this dip lasts between 90 to 100 days. We are currently, at the time of me making this video, we are currently in the longest amount of time ever that it's taken for the market to begin to recover. I'm not talking about a 2% movement up. I'm not talking about 4%. I mean like an actual proper recovery, so that we see by the time usually that we get to January after the halving, prices are ready to rippin' and roarin'. That's kind of the way that things have always been. The weird part about the course of this summer is that based on the date of Bitcoin's halving, we should, by the time we got to around end of July, we should have seen the market begin to recover. There are a lot of people who are arguing that because of the stock market crash and collapse, which dragged all asset prices down at the beginning of August, that we would have, but we didn't because of the fear and all of the markets that were taking place at the exact same time. You kind of get it? This is why I'm certain you have been hearing over the last 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. What words have you been hearing? What 2 months have constantly popped up over and over? September, October, September, October, Uptember, Uptober. It's been everywhere. Everyone's talking about it constantly as the months when the market is going to go back up. There's a research firm who has done their due diligence and their analysis, and they think that we might be in. So this is, once again, this is not what's going to happen. This is more of the way that things have played out, as they have not been as normal as they usually are, that they might begin to play out differently, potentially. If you remember in April and May, in the long ago, we also had, I believe it was Cathie Wood and one other person who said that cycles might be finished. Any Bitcoin cycle that we know and have become accustomed to might be gone forever. That's why I said I know the title was a bit dramatic, but it's basically what's being discussed. It's not what's wrong with Bitcoin, is that has something fundamentally actually changed. We have never, ever experienced this level of accumulation. Ever. It's never been a thing. When I talk about the news and we go over things and we talk about the amount of Bitcoin being held by whales, the low amount on crypto exchanges, you know it. we've gone over this basically weekly, if not every other daily, because it's constantly been in the news. There's not a lot of Bitcoin left. The confusion comes from, well, then why haven't prices moved? Depending on the analyst who you're talking to, it is believed that prices aren't moving the way that they should have or would have because of good old manipulation. Manipulation happens in every single market. And as I've been saying till I became blue in the face, nearly every single video, there's something happening in the market where these whales and these institutions are trying to get Bitcoin as cheap as possible. It is believed that they're actually using Bitcoin futures to manipulate the price lower and or keep it kind of stagnant or constantly crashing back down to what's the term that people use, to flush out the weak hands, the people who are the leaf on the tree that's getting ready to fall down, the people who can't conceptualize staying in the market for a long time, and it's working. I'm going to tell you something, and you can't tell anyone, okay? This is how markets actually work all over the place. What you want to do as a company or a corporation or a rich entity is you want to flush out basically everyone who's not rich. The more rich people and wealthy people that you have holding or controlling an asset, the easier it is to control and actually make profits from. I know it sounds weird. If the cryptocurrency market is 50-50 down the line, institutions and rich people and retail investors, everyday normal people, and for some reason we get news that in some country X, Y, and Z has happened, or some random country has banned Bitcoin. Institutions and long-term holders understand that it's like a blip on the radar. It's an event that happened. It's going to pass. In 2 to 3 weeks, no one will really understand or remember what happened. Retail, however, tends to be people who are brand new to finance, who typically don't hold a lot of assets, who aren't on an institutional level and or, if you want to put it this way, who don't have generational levels of wealth, who tend to be worth less than $5 to $10 million, which kind of begins remember I was telling you before about wealth counselors for families. They typically only, once you have more than 5 million, will they begin to kind of let you into the club to help you manage your wealth. Anything less than that is seen as a liability. That's why I said this is an industry secret, don't tell anyone. And it works out extremely well across all asset classes. It's why housing is the way that it is right now. Do you remember the stories or the news that we got before over the last 5 to 10 years of all the homes that have been bought up? Also homes that had people inside of them, like they owned this home. You go around, you call and you say, hey, we know you have some debts. We know you're not doing well. We are willing to offer you $180,000 in cash right now for this home. The average person will say yes in cash. It'll wipe out their debts and they can go move on and live their life somewhere else. The house is actually worth $500,000, but they don't have time to actually look into that any further. It's not the best practice, but it's the way that all these industry works and why we keep seeing a hyper consolidation of wealth. In the cryptocurrency market, it works the exact same way. They've been buying up all the Bitcoin like I've been saying for the last 2 years. But the last 9 months in particular have been a little bit diabolical. They've been buying up hordes of it. Amounts that we've never ever seen before. And a good portion of the people within the space are retail investors. The issue ends up being if 50% is rich people and 50% is retail and some kind of an event happens, the rich people feel that they're putting their economic future in the hands of the other 50% as well. If these people sell and they panic, the rich people also lose money. So how do you stop this? You basically make sure that anyone getting into the market gets flushed out constantly. We see the wallets that have 0.01 Bitcoin. For those of you who missed that other video, this was sometime in the summer. Not only are retail investors constantly selling and it's being bought back up by whales, but the people who are selling typically have anywhere from $10 to $15 to like $300 currently worth of Bitcoin. They get scared, they get spooked, and they sell it. If you have 100 people selling at the exact same time from those, amounts, that's half a Bitcoin. That's a full Bitcoin that gets reabsorbed or absorbed in general by the richer 50%, which then begins to become more skewed. And then eventually we get to the point where we were discussing you have 91% of all Bitcoin being held by the wealthiest people on earth. This is done on purpose. It's done to get you out of the market so that if you, your friends, your family ever decide to get afraid of things happening, this is how it works. If you get afraid of anything happening within the market will barely move because they understand, the rich people, that is basically a blip. It's going to disappear and the money will continue rolling back in. So, where we stand right now, because of the oddities within our market, a lot of companies and institutions are beginning to announce that these cycles might be over. The way that we know Bitcoin might completely be done, as I said earlier, with Cathie Wood, etc., etc. She mentioned something at the beginning of this year and people thought she was crazy. She said she thinks that this is the end of Bitcoin cycles. And people were like, that doesn't make any sense. It's going to be a normal cycle. Her idea was, if we begin to move back up quite exponentially in price, we get to a $200,000, $300,000 Bitcoin. The idea would then generally be, well, Bitcoin's going to head back down. We have another 2.5 years of kind of waiting. She said the amount of Bitcoin, and you should all know, the amount of Bitcoin that we're seeing being accumulated by these institutions is insane. Even if you just focus on the ETFs, which is a small portion of the market. Just the ETFs alone, she said, if this level of accumulation continues that we've been seeing, any major dip in the market will be completely filled almost instantaneously, which is what we've been seeing many times over the course of this summer. If you look back at any dips that we've had in price, they lasted for about 8 hours and then we kind of went back to the price where we were before. The news the very next day was that whales bought that dip. So she's saying if we get to several $100,000 per Bitcoin and it is solidified and locked in the minds of these institutions, it hit 300K, it's going to go to 600. It's at 600, it's going to go to 1.2 million. It's at 1.2 million, we're going to hit a $5 million Bitcoin. They're not going to relinquish or sell their position. The same exact way that these corporate landlords are buying up all these single family homes. They're not seeing housing prices fall by 5% and they go, we got to sell half the supply. They buy more. There is no getting rid of assets anymore for the very wealthy. They hold everything and they buy it and they continue to buy more and more. The idea being that in 2025, 2026, as prices are beginning to dip, any dip will be short-lived and will basically continue moving up. That's why she and many other analysts are saying, based off of math, how little Bitcoin there is to buy, how much the institutions have, and their thirst and hunger for buying more, not even including the other normal investors who've been buying for a number of years, who maybe have 15 Bitcoin, who are still buying fragments all the time. The market dries up. Any purchase then pushes prices a lot higher. And therefore, this is why we got to, remember earlier in the year, we had about 8 analysts all saying the exact same thing. By 2029, 2030, they're expecting over $1 million Bitcoin just based off of current supply and demand. That's where it goes completely insane. There's a company called Outlier Ventures, and they said because of that, this was apparently the worst ever post-halving price performance ever that we've ever had for Bitcoin. This is showing that the cycle may have already been broken, but people haven't kind of caught on yet, which also then leads us to, where does the market go? When do things begin to move? Is there going to be a point where there's actually a lull period If you look at the charts for gold, before they got the actual, the turning point for gold for many people is when gold began to have ETFs. If you look at the chart, there was a dip after it happened, and gold went up for, 20 something years continuously. It had a drop in 2008, 2009, but then began to propel a lot higher. People think that the same exact thing is currently taking place for Bitcoin, but the lack of, dare I say, patience and waiting. This is why I said before, and I will continue to say again, do not put money into this market that you can't afford to lose. It's a very important thing that you actually have to have in your head. If Bitcoin doesn't perform well for a year, you, as you put what you could afford to lose, should be completely okay with it. Okay, fine, the market's not moving, whatever, I have other stuff to do. But a lot of people keep overextending. They put money into the market. This also happens every other cycle as well, This is nothing really new, but the market goes up, something happens, and the prices dip back down, and it's just retail who's selling. The coins get bought back up, and then the rich get richer, and the poor remain with nothing over and over and over. We might be, now there's no confirmation for this, but people are beginning to discuss this because with the levels of accumulation that we have seen, that's why I said there's many layers, we should have been above $100,000 Bitcoin a while ago. When I said that at the beginning of this year, I think it was maybe February or March, I saw a lot of comments and people were like, you're just trying to fill your bag. You're trying to make the price go higher. The stupid negativity is something that I could totally do without. It does nothing for anyone, and it's also not helping you make any money in your life either. So I don't know where that's really coming from. It comes from basic math. If we hit $70,000 in 2021 and our network metrics are 3x what they currently are, I don't have the chart here. If you get a chance, look at Bitcoin's current hash rate. That's the amount of computers and the energy and computing power being used to mine Bitcoin. We're about a 7 to 8x worth of mining power higher than we were in 2020. The interest is sky high. We've never had 9 companies purchase 1 million Bitcoin in 3 months. The amount of Bitcoin on exchanges has never been lower, I think since like 2011 or 2012 or something like that. We've never had this much buying. We get news about banks buying Bitcoin all the time. We just had news that 12 central banks individually each own billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. None of this has ever happened. If we had heard that only 3 banks were into it, if we had heard that the mining power was only a 3x from where it was, normally before we were getting around, I think, between 8 to 15,000 new people creating wallets on the Bitcoin network per day. Daily now, at our lowest point this year, I think we hit 45 or 50,000. We had a day where 300,000 new wallets were created. This tells us that mathematically we should be already at double or triple minimum where we were from the previous all-time high. That's what everyone's talking about. So a lot of times I think people are skeptical or like to throw out negativity, as I said before, because they have nothing better to do in their lives. But it's a really weird moment because a lot of analysts are also questioning, has the cycle broken? All this accumulation that we're seeing is not normal, but also like what's happening with the prices. Because as prices were trending lower, the accumulation levels were getting even more intense. We had certain days where, there was over the course of some 7-day period, I think like $8 billion, I forgot what the number was. It was billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin was accumulated over the course of a week period. It was literally weeks and months worth of Bitcoin gone like that in 7 days. Thus, the discussion of the end of the cycles, of the end of Bitcoin, of the end of how we know it. They said, to finish it off, one of the head of research at Outlier Ventures stated He said it's time for founders and investors to move away from the notion of a 4-year cycle as the cryptocurrency markets continue to mature. We might have only seen these 4-year cycles in the very beginning when it was just us. That was also a discussion that we had last year. It's not us here anymore. It's not several, maybe 5-10 million people who are in the market who are like enthusiasts. It's now corporations and entities who are worth trillions of dollars who have a gigantic interest in buying something at $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 that could potentially go to $20 million a piece. Thus, the idea as well of manipulating the market through the futures. There's a lot going on at the exact same time. And I mean, I also heard the other argument, well, things aren't looking too rosy or aren't whatever because of the upcoming election. No, this is every halving is an election year. Yeah, something might have changed. We might be witnessing the actual like huge shift, as I've been saying before, in the wealth transfer. The wealth transfer is not going to be loud. It's not going to be people outside holding up signs. It's done silently. It's done annoyingly. It's done to make you lose hope and lose faith and sell your assets, sell your homes, sell your land, sell your stocks, get rid of your assets, and then they all get bought up. We already live in one of the most unequal times ever. Look at the articles. We are currently worse than the Victorian era. And it's only going to get worse and squeeze tighter as rich people continue to find cleverly diabolical ways of making sure that you relinquish your assets. Yeah, it'll be a fascinating autumn and winter. That is definitely for sure. I personally still have, I don't want to say an abundance of faith in the market, but I know that things will move. But for a lot of other people, there's like this bewilderment of what's going on. And I think it's happening in all markets. But that's also a personal idea that I have about the way that money works. I'm telling you, if you read those books in the description below, you'll understand. One of them is literally about how rich people are able to like confuse the general public and accumulate more assets, and like why the divide is no longer a divide. It's like a canyon. It's all done on purpose. You want to have more and you want to have all of it because you are then able to make sure that markets remain stable in case everyone else ends up panicking. That's how big money works. I do sincerely hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.